Here we are, outdoors again. There's a bit of water.
Can't see it from where you are.
There's some bird action happening there, and we have a long lens to capture all that, at least that one bird that is there right now. It's a newly released Tamron 150 to 500 lens, I believe.
That's right. This is an f5 to 6.7. It is a native Z lens. It is a chunky monkey, quite heavy.
Yes.
But we're going to test it out on the Z8. We've also got the ZF, which we're filming on right now. We're going to put it on both of those and see how it performs.
Yeah, we're recording in 10 beats, so all that latitude should be right there. But let's go test it and find out.
Excellent. This lens weighs 1,720 grams, so coupled with a Z8, it is a heavy option, and I'm gonna rest it right here so that I can take some weight off my arm. In terms of close focusing distance, at the wide end, you've got 60 centimeters as your closest focusing distance, and at the long 500 end, you have 1.8 meters, which is pretty good, I'd say, for a 500 mil.
Indeed.
For those of you that love tech specs, it is also made up of 25 elements in 16 groups, which probably adds to the fact that it's so heavy and so long. It's 212 millimeters or 8.4 inches from the mount to the end, not including the lens hood. Now, if I just take off the lens hood here, you can see that size-wise, it's quite similar to the 100 to 400, but it is heavier.
Yeah, it is a bit longer as well, I think.
Yeah, the fact that it is an extra 100 millimeters at the long end does obviously add to that, but it isn't quite as wide as the 100 to 400. I'd say that the equivalent lens to this in the Nikon range is probably the 100 to 400.
Yes.
Because the 180 to 600
is longer, bigger, heavier,
longer,
more expensive.
Longer, bigger, heavier, and more expensive, exactly. So I think the 180 to 600 is a very different lens, while this is as close as we can get right now to the 100 to 400 in the Nikon range.
Agree.
Obviously, today is quite a poor lighting day anyway, but I am finding that the focus is faster than I expected. I thought for a Tamron lens, it might be a bit more sluggish. It is slower than the Nikon equivalents, but we're talking fractions of a second, not a huge difference, and only really noticeable if you're going from closest focusing distance to furthest focusing distance. Just to go over the switches with you, so we do have an option here for the full focusing range. We have a middle option as well, which is the minimum optical distance to 10 meters, and then we have 10 meters to infinity. So depending on what sort of photography you're doing, you can actually limit the lens, which could be useful in speeding up the focusing. Now, we've also got, exclusive to Nikon Z at the moment, the use of the Tamron lens utility, which means that if you do want to customize your lens, or if you need to do any firmware updates on it, you can via the USB-C port right here. Now, the only downside to that is the fact that it's not covered. So you do have to cover it over if you're going to shoot in the rain, I would say. Another feature that this lens has is a zoom lock, where you can not only lock it into position when you're walking around with it at the 150 end, we know about those, but actually while you're shooting, you've got a quick lock here. So let's say you're shooting at 300 and you don't want the lens to accidentally creep back in while you're shooting. You just pull up the zoom ring and it locks. You now can't move it from side to side. So you can do that at any point in the focal range, which could be handy if you are pointing upwards, let's say to photograph astral bodies, or if you don't want someone to knock your focal length off.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so Becky found some mushrooms.
Of course I did.
Over there. Finally, she is going to do what she came here to do, is find small objects and photograph them.
That's what I do best. Okay, it's not, so this is at the 150 end. So the close focusing distance, as I said, is 60 centimeters. And actually, it's quite lovely what you can do there. Okay, now the closest focusing distance at the 500 end, being 1.8 meters, means I'd have to photograph mushrooms 1.8 meters away. So I'm going to move. Obviously.
Okay, so now you're 1.8 meters away.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, tell me, what are the results like?
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty overcast today, so the ISO is up at about 12, 1500, 1600, but very sharp at that close focusing distance. Looking forward to seeing those shots.
Look at that, Becky approved. So the sun came out.
It did, which is quite impressive really, because it was very overcast. Last week we tried to film this and it was chucking it with rain, so.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fact that this lens is priced at £1,250 versus the Nikon equivalents.
Which is 2,000 or so. And if you look even at 180-600, which is not competing with, it's also quite expensive.
$17.99 and thereabouts, yeah. So if you're looking for something at a very particular price point, this is definitely worth considering. I will say, looking at the images that we've taken both this week and last week, the longest end isn't the sharpest, but at the shorter ranges, and anything up to, I would say, about 300 or 400, it is very, very good. You can totally use it at the 500 end. It might be down to the fact that we're using it on a Z8, which is possibly one of the more demanding cameras in the Z range.
That's true. So it's a budget option. I mean, budget to a degree. This is a good choice. Keep in mind that if you use DX cameras, then this lens has vibration reduction. So 500 suddenly becomes 750 as well on longer end with vibration reduction. So quite good. Obviously, will be front heavy on any camera, regardless DX or full frame. But as an option with the arc Swiss mount and proper tripod foot, I think it's a really good. It's a really good.
It's a really good. It's a really good.
In conclusion, this is Tamron 150 to 500 lens. It goes to 500 mil. If you'll do your sports, if you'll do your wildlife, autofocus is good. It is on the heavy side, 1.7 kilograms, but at the same time, wildlife photography can get heavy. Some people think it's not heavy, some people they do, but if you do find 1.7 kilograms heavy, have a look at Tamron 70 to 300.
That's right. If you compare it with the 100 to 400 Nikon, which a lot of people would ask us to do, and we would do if we had one to compare it with, but from our personal experience of using the 100 to 400, we can say that optically that is a better lens. It is a sharper lens, it is a faster to focus lens. It is also a little bit lighter, but is significantly more expensive. So you are kind of getting what you pay for here. If your subject is within that 150 to 500 range and you're not shooting it absolutely miles away, then actually it does a really, really great job. It's not even macro, but that walk around close up as well. Yeah. It's nice that it produces such a high magnification and that you can focus so closely, considering that it's a telephoto lens, you wouldn't normally expect that.
And look at this, Arcus Swiss mount tripod foot. Imagine that. Apparently, those things exist in the real world.
They do. If you're maybe considering traveling, going on a safari or a wildlife trip, and on a normal day-to-day basis, this is not your go-to focal length, but you know you're going to need that 500mm end, then this is a really good option just because of the price point. To get there with a Nikon lens will cost you significantly more, and that's really what you have to take into account when looking at this one.
Exactly. And the last thing to add, no, it doesn't take Nikon Z teleconverters. So it's 150 to 500 only. But if you like this video, give us a like and subscribe.
Yes, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget the super thanks as well.